April 28, 1819. Captain John Smith of the British Madras Cavalry is out hunting tigers through thick jungle near Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar in Maharashtra, Western India. The tiger the hunting party was tracking disappears. A local shepherd directs them to a mysterious stone houses hidden in the gorge. Smith and his hunting party pushes through the thick jungle, and then the jungle steps aside and the cliff appears. And then he sees those mysterious houses, dark mouths in the cliff's face, ancient caves, watching, waiting. Smith knows at once this is not an accident of nature. This was built and forgotten. 1,000 years of silence breaks in a moment. Ajanta had waited centuries to be seen again. I am Sarvjit and welcome to India's Golden Age podcast. Subscribe if you want to listen to stories and wisdom from India's first Golden Age and forces shaping its second. It is late 2nd century before Common Era. The Satavahana dynasty rules the Deccan, controlling trade routes from northern India to the Arabian Sea. Not very far from Satavahana capital, Pratisthana, Buddhist monks gather in Horseshoe Gorge carved by the Vagora River. Before them rises a 100-foot wall of volcanic basalt formed millions of years earlier. The head monk breaks his silence.
This is where we build our monastery. Not on the rock. In it.
The other monks look at him with surprise. The head monk is not naive. He knows this will take decades, maybe centuries. He knows he'll never see it finished in his lifetime. During the Satavahana era, a small number of caves were carved and symbolic forms typical of Hinayana Buddhism. Then the chisel felt silent for centuries, at least 3 centuries. Buddhist pilgrims continued to visit. In the 5th century, the Vakatakas became a dominant power in the region, aligned with Guptas and flush with trade wealth. They restart the Ajanta cave project, the activity peaking under the Vakata king Harishena, who ruled during the late 5th century. To make a typical cave, a team of Buddhist monks and artisans would start from the top and carve down. Falling stone would ruin anything built below. By carving the ceiling first, they effectively sculpt the entire structure in reverse. There were no blueprints, no written plans, only shared knowledge passed across generations. Some caves were simple places to live, viharas. Others were prayer halls, chaityas, with vaulted ceilings and stupas. One cave, number 26, extends nearly 100 feet into solid rock. Many caves were excavated with oil lamps and reflected light. One wrong cut and the ceiling gives way. One error could mean collapse. That the monks succeeded is a real mystery. The engineering was remarkable, but the reason the Ajanta caves became world famous was for the paintings. Around half a dozen pigments were used, all mineral-based, bound with animal glue. On this limited palette, the artists achieved extraordinary depth. The paintings were supervised by old monks cut off from the world. These elders set the themes executed by guild artisans. At first glance, their choice seems surprising. Who would imagine such men approving portrayals of women marked by tenderness and sensual grace? It is possible the elders do, not from observation, but from memory and from longing. The elders instructed the artisans to paint what they themselves could not speak of, images carried in secret that still haunted them in meditation. Talking of women, well, they fill the walls of Ajanta. Apsaras dance, queens move with intent, courtesans seduce, mothers nurse. Their poses are deliberate, their jewelry detailed, their expressions knowing, sensual, yes, but never passive. Look at the woman looking at the mirror. She advances the narrative. In another painting, a queen grabs her husband's robe as if renouncing his kingdom. His calm face shows he's already left her world. The feeling still lands after 1500 years. The old monks who commissioned these paintings did not pretend that women were invisible. Women were given agency, interiority, and voice. The celibate monks understood something timeless. You cannot tell a human story without women at its center. The walls speak in parables. They depict the Jatak tales, the Buddha's previous lives, each life centered on sacrifice. In one life, he is a prince who's given away his kingdom. In another, he is an elephant who's offered his tusks to a hunter. In another, he is a hare who's thrown himself into a fire to feed a starving Brahmin. Every story asks the same question: what would you sacrifice for others? What is the price of compassion? These caves were not museums. The monks designed the caves to instruct, not impress. Every panel teaches. Walk in, and the walls begin to talk. Pilgrims of every class learned by a walkthrough. These paintings fulfilled their spiritual purpose, but their achievement went further. In artistic excellence, what remains stands confidently alongside anything sculpted or painted in Athens or Florence. Now let's imagine a painter, Madhava, in the late 5th century. Madhava works high on a bamboo scaffolding in Cave 1. Dust fills his lungs. Today he gives bodhisattvas, padmapanis, the lotus bearer, his eyes, half closed, introspective, infinitely compassionate. You feel judged and forgiven at once. The supervising monk studies Madhava's work and says,
Padmapani is luminous, peaceful, divine.
and then the monk meets the bodhisattva's eyes and says,
I feel the quiet fatigue of compassion. Over lifetimes.
the monk murmurs in deep appreciation.
Great work of art. Sadhu.
The rare word sadhu means everything to Madhava. It fills him with childlike joy. He playfully points out.
Watch his eye. Walk past. He seems to follow you.
The monk does so and is stunned by the trick. He smiles.
You will fade, Madhava. But Bodhisattva will remain. The gaze will live on.
Madhava smiles, knowing it is true.
Sadhu.
More impressive than the eye trick is how the paintings endured for more than 1500 years. The paintings survived because the artists engineered the wall in the beginning. 3 layers of treatment. First mud with cow dung and rice husk, then fine clay, then lime. Only then was paint applied. A tempera fresco hybrid whose chemistry still challenges modern conservation. Walter Spink's lifelong research on Ajanta caves makes a startling claim. The paintings was not made gradually in Vakata era as he assumed. Instead, the work happened fast in a short focused period of around 20 years. It was driven by Vakata king Harishena's ambition. Thousands descend on the George as Harishena pushed hard,
I want immortality. I want it now.
he might have claimed. When Harishena died in late 5th century, the money just stopped. Work was abandoned mid-process. The silence came at once. That is how Spinks believes Ajanta ended. So what has truly stayed with me while researching about the Ajanta paintings were the faces, the people. The king caught in the excitement of the hunt, the obedient son fetching water, a guard on duty. These would be amongst some of the oldest painted Indian faces on record. The people in these paintings felt close. They look familiar to faces in Western India where I live. One has to keep reminding oneself that they were not from our world in 2026. As the glass covers were removed for photography in Ajanta caves, the guards joked about which painted figure looked like whom. The women's bangles and clothing styles are still part of daily life in Maharashtra. The continuity is startling. 2000 years should feel like a gulf. Instead, the past feels very near, almost present. In the first millennia during the India's golden age, Ajanta mattered to world art because it was plugged into Asia. These caves were part of a Buddhist network stretching from Sri Lanka to Japan. Chinese pilgrims Zhuangzhou visits around 640 Common Era and records the figures of devas are such as if they could speak. Soon caves in China showed softer drapery and deeper emotion. The impact of Ajanta was everywhere, from the cloud maidens of Sri Lanka to Buddhist Jataka stories at Borobudur. This was one more step in the process of Indian aesthetics quietly reviving Asian art since the 3rd century. Now let's get back to British officer from Madras, John Smith. His rediscovery of the cave was quickly marked by an act of defacement, a piece of ugly graffiti he left behind. Subsequently, British efforts at art copying expedition failed catastrophically. Fires in 1866 and 1885 destroyed 2 major Ajanta art documentation projects. History, it seems, had a dark sense of humor. Yet the awkward British colonial copies had an unintended consequence. A new generation of Indian artists, beginning with Nandalal Bose, turned to the caves to reclaim a visual language that was fluid, emotional, and global. One that required no European endorsement. Tagore walked the caves and wrote of hearing the eternal voice of humanity there. For a colonized society repeatedly told that it had no history worth preserving, Ajanta became a mirror in which India saw itself again in full color. The caves were built by hand by people who believed their work counted for something. As India accelerates towards AI and automation, there is a value in preserving handmade craftsmanship. The hand-knotted carpet, the handcrafted sculpture. These are methods of storing human attention, dense enough to be felt centuries later. If this journey through India's ancient art and heritage sparked something in you, subscribe, follow, and keep exploring. And step into my Gupta Golden Age universe through my upcoming novel, Dhruvadevi, the forgotten Gupta queen who made Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Is there a favorite painting that you have, Ajanta or otherwise? Comment below. Bye for now. See you in the next episode. Jai Hind.